This past summer, you were either most likely surprised, disappointed, confused, or even mad when Grand Valley announced on June 22 through the Grand Valley website that our tuition would rise by 3%, despite the fact that most classes would be online or hybrid, and many campus facilities, including the rec center, had not opened, and it was unsure if they would open at all. In many other ways, this current school year is not the normal one, and the experience is not the same, and yet our tuition still went up. You may know that an online petitions started here at Grand Valley. My name is Jared Olick, and I will be talking about rising tuition prices during the pandemic. By the end of this speech, you should agree that colleges should freeze or lower their tuition prices for the pandemic school year. This is because unfair college tuition harms students, their families, and the economy as a whole. And you should care about this topic because as Grand Valley students, in addition to being directly impacted, we should also be advocating for how other schools handle their tuition prices because it can put pressure on Grand Valley to follow suit. I'm going to talk about why raising tuition prices unfairly harms people, how we can make schools change, and what an America with more accessible college education would look like. The first thing I'm going to talk about is raising tuition prices this school year. This year, college quality has decreased, but tuition has not congruently decreased, which has led to some public outrage. Even though we have online classes and campus facilities and activities are limited, our tuition is certainly not limited. And this doesn't seem fair, which has led to many current and potential future students not trusting their schools. And this is evidenced in student-led petitions, protests, and even lawsuits against schools. Raising tuition prices certainly don't reflect the economic hardships of families and students during the pandemic, which is increasing the education gap and increasing student debt. Now that we know that raising tuition prices is just a bad idea, we can talk about how we can make schools change. Ideally, schools will lower or freeze their tuition prices. The first way we can achieve this is by putting legal pressure on schools. We can do this by having students at more schools start class action lawsuits alleging breach of contract, and the lawyers could be paid by a contingency fee, which would make it really difficult to estimate the cost, but I'll get to that in just a moment. Students and professors can also contact leaders in Washington, D.C. with petitions and sign petitions online at change.org for both our school and others. We can also put public pressure on schools with a nationwide protest day. A nationwide protest of millions of students would draw more attention to this cause, and students can use the hashtag #FairTuition to coordinate what day to protest and spread awareness. The estimated cost would be really hard to estimate depending on how many lawsuits are won, but the estimated profit, the most conservative number I could make for that, of a freeze of public college tuition would save students over $3 billion. I came up with this number according to research from the College Board in 2019, which said that the average public school tuition for in-state residents is about $10,000, and for out-of-state residents, nearly $27,000. And about 14.5 million students attend public colleges. And public schools raise their tuition by roughly 2% on average every year. According to the Washington Post in 2019, between 60 and 80% of students stay in-state, depending on what state they're from. By putting all these numbers together, I was able to come up with $3 billion as the most conservative estimate for the money saved due to a freeze in public tuition. The potential money back for students and their families would clearly outweigh the cost of any lawyers that win their cases on contingency fees. Now that we know that raising tuition this year is a bad idea and we know how to combat it, we can talk about an America with less student debt and more accessible college education. As a country with more accessible college education, tuition can fairly reflect the college experience, which I think just seems right. It just seems fair in this current environment. Students will also trust and respect their schools, and this is actually really important, because according to a 2015 publication of the Journal of Information Management Systems, students' institutional trust in their schools is one of the most important factors in determining whether campus safety and emergency notification systems will be effective, and we all want safe campuses. Students can also graduate without crippling debt, and more students can go to college. And of course, this makes sense. It'd be really great for everybody, and it's proven in the 2019 publication of the American Economic Journal, which shows that decreasing tuition results in significant welfare gains in education. After hearing this speech, you should agree that colleges should freeze or lower their tuition for this school year. Clearly, unfair college tuition harms students, their families, and the economy. I talked about why raising college tuition is harmful, how we can make schools change, and what an America with more accessible college education would look like. Remember the online petition I mentioned started here at Grand Valley? It currently has over 5,000 signatures, and while this petition may not lead to Grand Valley or any other school lowering or freezing their tuition, many more petitions like it and lawsuits in the same manner could result in freezing tuition for this current school year. So make your voices heard. Sign petitions at change.org for our school and others. Write to and post about why schools should lower or freeze their tuition using the hashtag #FairTuition, so that both schools and the government feel the need to charge students fairly for their education. Thank you.